What is up, people of the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Welcome to my Hawkeye Episode 4 recap, review, and breakdown. And this episode, very much so, certainly pushes along a few theories that we've got going. Not only that, we get some more evidence and references to the big boss in terms of Kingpin. There's some very fishy things going on with, you could say, Jack, but I think, is kind of Eleanor. And then, of course, Yelena appearing at the end. So let's pick up right at the beginning of the episode. By the way, if you aren't subscribed to the channel already, maybe today is the day that you do that. I'm sure you'll enjoy some other videos here, and maybe go ahead and like the video if you do go on to enjoy it. But we do more or less pick right up where we left off, obviously with Jack equipping the Ronin sword to Clint's neck, and it's kind of interesting because none of them really know that that is actually the Ronin there and then, other than maybe one person, but we will get into that. And I find all of this story very interesting because from the get-go, we've been suspecting Jack killing Omans, but at the same time, a lot of the audience are like, that's way too obvious, but then it's kind of put onto Eleanor, so to speak, and in this moment, things are somewhat coming out into the open very slowly but surely, and you can really start to connect all of the dots together, especially with a couple of teasing scenes that we get. I like the fact that they use the Avengers level threat line as well, and in this moment, I like the way they do portray Eleanor because on the surface level, she does come across as this caring, nice woman. We had some nice scenes of how, despite Kate's feelings for Jack, she couldn't help but see her mum smile when she was kind of blushing and dancing like that, saying that she's never really seen her that way before. But at the same time, we do know there's a lot more depth to Eleanor than what, Kate even realizes, and I'm looking forward to that revelation happening. But regardless, this brought the scene to a moment in where she somewhat confronts Cliff and how her daughter isn't Avenger, she isn't a hero. Natasha was pretty damn good, but that didn't exactly stop her from being killed, and obviously, you would be extremely concerned for your daughter in the fact that she's dealing with some kind of mission that Clint is on. And at the end of the day, something that has been reiterated through and through this series is that in this line of work, Hawkeye has reiterated that it's not exactly easy. You're somewhat managing loss, and yeah, you can get yourself killed. Of course, Clint couldn't resist but swipe the Ronin sword. I have to admit, of course, they didn't show the scene of where he did swipe it because the place it was located, and this is nitpicky, I suppose you could say, there's no way he could have done that without really being seen by Jack or someone, so conveniently they do cut to when he does have it. And this is where Clint contacts Laura, and this all comes to a reveal of how it is obviously a front, and that the CEO is actually Jack. But there is, I think, quite a bit more to that than what really meets the eye at face value, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Now, it was around about this time, though, when Clint was leaving and everything like that, that Eleanor was shown to be on the phone to someone. And you have to kind of put two and two together, especially with all the theories out there. It's like, well, she rings up someone, says a couple of words, and it's like, who turns up at the end of the episode? Someone to kill Hawkeye, who was, yes, already dispatched by Val on a mission to take out Clint, but you kind of have to put the pieces of the puzzle together. I'm not saying this is the case for a fact, but it does make me think with all the theories of how Eleanor is kind of a lot more diabolical than the way she comes across and what she's involved in. Where does she really get her money? And I do have an idea behind that. That is also just not unique to me. What if she's in bed with even larger people like Val, who of course is setting up the Thunderbolts and everything like that, and who sent Yelena after Clint? Well, what's better than say, hey, that Avenger Hawkeye, Clint Barton, he was at my house. You might want to send someone after him or tell them that he's here. And I do really appreciate how they're putting those little seeds in the show, because that is something that could fly over your head if you're not like into this as much as we are or watching breakdowns. And not to insult the general audience's intelligence there, but it's like little stuff that could slide by, or just maybe it might make you think, oh, who is she contacting? And, you put two and two together. But also it shows this side of Eleanor that I've already been mentioning, and how she comes across really nice. And I'm sure, obviously, the loving relationship that she has for her daughter and the concerns is all very genuine. However, it just shows you who she is in terms of at her core and her true colors just after meeting this man for 2 minutes, that if this theory is in fact true, with her ringing up Val potentially to kind of give Yelena a clue as to where exactly Clint is, that she's met this man for 2 minutes and is already willing to help sign his death warrant in terms of providing his location. And it's like, then you put that onto Eleanor and you look at her from the outside box, it's like, damn, That is very cold. And also then you take into account the other theories, if it was her who actually took out Armand with the access to swords that she has around the place, it makes it look like Jack. And then with the next theory that we're going to get into, it just doubles down on it even more. Back to Laura very quickly talking about, I find it very interesting that she mentioned the watch. Now, there's already some theories floating around here with regards to obviously who this watch belongs to. First and foremost, you know, even I thought it was like, you know, a Rolex, that could be Tony Stark's, especially as we've seen some of his techie stuff come out of watches before. It's the kind of obvious one that maybe, you know, considering Armor Wars and everything like that, or even put Armor Wars aside, any kind of person would kind of want to utilize something that could let out his blasts and something potentially a lot more dangerous. However, the fact that Laura changed the language to German here and wanted to hide the fact that did anything else go missing from the Avengers compound? You know, like, you mean the Rolex? And she's like, exactly. Why would she be kind of a bit more hyper vigilant about that watch? Now, the reason why I now don't think it's Tony is because Clint did say that it used to belong to someone, it is tied to their identity, and if that identity is revealed through the watch, then it will blow their cover. Now, if you ask me, people know Iron Man is Tony Stark. So that kind of takes him off the table for me. So it's kind of like, whose watch is this and who close to Hawkeye is that? Now, I know this sounds crazy to say it's potentially his wife, like Laura. And like, why would she like be wearing a watch that could potentially be, you know, dangerous and stuff or blow her cover? But obviously she has a bit of a prior life as well, much like, you know, obviously Clint has. And that's an interesting thing to contemplate. But I just wanted to offer that on the table with how the fact that she brought it up, and it was initially dismissed, but they decide to pursue it, and then it's like, oh, this will blow someone's cover, and obviously that's not Tony Stark's because he's Iron Man. That's very public knowledge, so I'll leave that one with you guys. Like, why do you think Laura was quite especially interested in that if it kind of meant absolutely nothing to her? But this show just continuously knows how to hit me in the feels. So we had that commentary back in the apartment as well, where Jack was saying, like, you know, being alone in the holidays, and Kate then realizes that, you know, Clint has been trying to get back to his family, but he feels compelled to stay here. So then this somewhat cuts to Clint strapping all the kind of frozen food over him to deal with the cuts and bruises, so to speak, and swellings of the battle they were in last episode. And she arrives with Pizza Dog, pizza in hand, equipped with a Santa hat, and this was like a really sweet thing. Obviously the biggest selling point of the show, it just wouldn't work as well if you didn't have a chemistry between the two main characters, Kate Bishop and Clint Barton's Hawkeye. And I still really highly endorse them, and this is, despite any issues or whatever I have with episode to episode, this is my favorite thing that they don't really seem to miss on with me. It also just kind of develops their relationship as well, despite the end of the episode. Like, even with the title of the episode, Partners, it feels like they're only getting closer and closer to being partners, for it to kind of be the rug taken out from under Kate later, only through the protection that Clint is trying to give to her. But, you know, she's gonna be back anyway. But it's just furthering along that relationship that I really love. And this just, you know, turned into something that meant a lot to Clint. And it was also at the same time a bit of a hybrid investigation on, you know, obviously the crime ring, because I almost forgot, before I get ahead of myself, Clint did reveal to Kate in this moment that he did some digging on Jack and how he found out that Sloan Limited is a shell company that launders money for the tracksuits, and Jack is a CEO. And this obviously doesn't necessarily surprise Kate at first, considering her hunch about him murdering Armand. But then, you know, with the audience and all of us really kind of trying to peel back the curtains here, there's a lot more to this. So this is the other theory I wanted to chuck in with regards to Eleanor. I really wouldn't be surprised if, despite us seeing on paper like Jack is the CEO, what if he is absolutely not aware of that at all? Like, for example, his name is being used unbeknownst to him. Who would do that? Eleanor. Now, yes, of course, a lot of us have figured that she got a lot of money from the life insurance from her husband, Kate's father, who died in the attack, but lots of audience members are thinking, was there an opportunity to kill him at the same time of the attack? I don't know about that one. I do think he could have actually died in the Avengers, you know, attack way back when. However, I wouldn't put it past Eleanor, you know, with everything that is yet to be revealed about her, for her to be, you know, even using her fiance's name to, just in case it all goes wrong, for the blame to be put on him. He would be the fall guy for her means of getting money and, money laundering, the tracksuit stuff, and God knows what else she is tied up in. So, Eleanor, all shiny and rosy on the front, but underneath that exterior, I would love to know what you guys think of how Jack, being the CEO, might be completely unbeknownst to him, and really it's just Eleanor doing all of this behind his back. This would also, if you just want to go down that road for like 30 more seconds, so to speak, just speak larger to Omans' disdain for the couple in general, because maybe he got to a point of finally finding out about the Sloan Limited company, with Jack being the CEO, and he confronted Eleanor about that, and she's kind of maybe in on it, according to Armand. But long story short here, he might not have realized that Jack had no idea that his name was being used. He maybe just assumed that they're both in on it, and that led to that whole situation where she wanted to kill Armand before, I don't know, let's just say Armand went to Jack and says, why are you doing this money laundering business? Like, you're the CEO. Well, that was one way of putting a stop to that, wasn't it? So all of that starts to crack together, and that little dispute they had in the distance when Kate was trying to figure out what they were saying could have been him cottoning on to the whole Sloan Limited front, and she didn't like how close he was getting to find out the truth, and how Jack, if he confronted him about it, would have said, wait, what? Sloan Limited? I have no idea about this, what's going on? But anyway, the Christmas montage stuff with them trying to figure out how to take down the crime ring and do everything they need to do was good. It is a bit far-fetched for me, for Kate, despite her being a very skilled archer, to learn that trick and kind of get it in a few attempts. But that's kind of the thing that comes with these comic book shows sometimes. And you just know the reason why they wanted to kind of set this up is that it will probably be used in the next couple of episodes as some kind of vital thing that she pulls off to kind of pull off something that is larger, if you know what I mean. Same kind of thing with all of these boomerang arrow references. I really wouldn't be surprised if, for some reason, in some way or another, like, something boomerangs round, and it's like Kate's just like, see, I told you about the boomerang trick thing, and then maybe in the future we see Kate equip a boomerang trick shot arrow, and that actually becomes an established trick arrow. Again, with all of the feelsy stuff, Jeremy Renner just hits me whenever he gets sincere. So, whether it was the story about the best shot that he made, or was the one he never took, and that was when he was sent to kill Black Widow, but he never did that. She ended up defecting, and it's just like, it's a nice kind of revisiting, even though they are kind of leaning on the Black Widow stuff quite a bit. I can't blame them, because it's a big part of Clint's guilt, really. And then we get even further into the Black Widow stuff, because when they went to bed, he had the flashbacks of the Ronin stuff, because Kate found out and kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together that he is indeed Ronin, or he was Ronin, and she tried to kind of put into context the actions that he made and whatnot. But either way, they showed the Endgame flashbacks again, and God, that always just hits me. Like, damn, do you have to keep doing it? Just stop. I mean, don't stop, because I kind of like it. It's like the torture you're willing to put up with. I do like some of the conversation they got onto, though, when he referred to himself as a weapon, just aimed by the right people at the right targets. Now, people are already discussing how, especially when it comes to Val sending Yelena after Hawkeye, and she even showed the Ronin suit, you can't forget, when she presented that target to Yelena. Like, what if, considering how deep Val seems to go when we first saw her in live action in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and how equipped this woman seems to be, and how she even comes across even more Black Ops than even Nick Fury or something, makes you think that maybe in the blip when Clint was dealing, how everyone dealt with the blip in their own way, what if he was more than happy to be used as one of her weapons, like somewhat of a proto Thunderbolt thing, if you know what I mean. Wouldn't be surprising. Then you take into account a woman like Val doing what she does, setting people up on missions to kind of achieve a means to the end, not in the most kind of Avengers way, but what the Thunderbolts are like, and the kind of way they are sent out. She might want to just tie up any loose ends, even when it comes to Clint. Assuming they do have a history together. I do want to stress once again, this is just a theory. Next morning, though, Clint comes up with a plan for Kate to go after the live action role play of people. Now, I wasn't a huge fan of this thing, and I'll get into why. It's just a bit of a thing where I feel like serious situations aren't really grounded enough in reality, and I'll see what you'll see what I mean by that. And then obviously Clint would go after Kazi to have a little bit of a chat with him to try and appeal to Echo/Maya. Now, when we see Kate go to LARPers, this is where it's just like, okay, there's a cop in the LARPers of now Clint has got a relationship with them, so he figured one of them could help. Okay, I get that. But it's just like, it gets to the point of where she proposes one of the cops breaking into a New York evidence facility, which is, obviously illegal. And I don't even think this is nitpicky. It's just hard to sell me on when it comes down to the fact that Kate managed to convince a cop to break into an evidence facility, and her only ask for going through with something quite risky, not only like losing a job as a cop, but going to jail, is if you can make it worth my while. And what did we learn that was? That was to engage in some live action roleplay a little bit later with that Viking suit and provide materials for a couple of costumes. I'm sorry, but you can't really convince me that this woman would go through that extent of risk just for that. It's just like, that's where Marvel gets a bit far-fetched for someone like me. Like, I'm not all for pure realisticness in Marvel shows. I'm really not. It's just, you're going to try and convince me that I'm going to go and break into an NYPD evidence facility for the sake of materials for new costumes and Kate getting involved in a little bit of LARPing. Next really interesting development, it is just more teases, possibly setting up for a big mic drop with Kingpin in episode 5, according to the rumors or whatever. And so he speaks to Kazi, just kind of like more or less saying, this Ronin shit needs to go to bed. She's got an obsession that's probably going to end up getting her killed. You have her ear. You really need to try and put a stop to this and her desire for chasing a ghost. But obviously, the parts that were getting me excited were the lines of where he said, he mentions that he knows that what Maya's boss wants, and that what he's already done to get it, and that he knows that he doesn't like this attention, that's for sure. And this guy, that Maya's boss, is Uncle, aka Kingpin. And I think people are expecting in some way, shape, or form, especially with what they're setting up, Kevin Feige's comments of how Charlie Cox is the Daredevil of the MCU. There might be that moment where we have Vincent's Kingpin come in next episode, whether it's at the end or maybe a post-credit scene, even if it's just like a 3-second shot from the tie up, the camera panning up to his face and him smiling, that kind of vibe definitely seems to be happening. And so this is where Kate and Clint go to retrieve the watch, because it's sort of quite some significance. As I said, I would love to hear your theories as to who it belongs to. Now, Kate ignores Clint, which I found a little bit frustrating, like as he was saying all of that stuff, and she just goes straight in there. It is a bit reckless and silly, but in these stories, sometimes the young, spirited one is reckless and silly, and that's, I guess, fair enough and understandable in the story. And the thing is, it's lucky that Kate has good intuition. It just did come across a bit sketchy too, if you're breaking in, and lo and behold, it was Echo's apartment, to just walk out into the road and have a load of cars beeping, this, that, and the other. It's not exactly covert. It's not exactly stealthy. So, you know what I mean? It's just, that's kind of the thing that rubbed me the wrong way, so to speak. Even though it could still be very much so true to Kate's young-spirited characteristics. She ignores the grappling hook route, goes in with the old man with his groceries. She uses those 2 trick arrows to stop those strobe light alarms, because obviously they are alarms for someone who is deaf. So that's the way it can get your attention, obviously, rather than sound. Kate does find the watch, and also a notepad with details on Clint's family. And this is where the shit starts to go down, basically. Clint thought that Maya was on the roof with him, but no, it was actually Yelena, with a bit of an homage to the comic book accurate, design she had there before she removed it later. Overall, I'm very entertained by all of this action here. There was only a couple of things that came across bothering me, in my opinion, and that is, Yelena was sent there to kill Clint. Yelena had a gun like that, and Hawkeye walks, it's like, don't kill Kate, basically. And she could have just still shot him. Now, the only reason I struggle with that is, maybe there is going to be some context, and I hope they explain this, if this is the case, that maybe she realizes that he was a good friend to her sister, despite her still carrying on with this mission to take him out. So I have to believe that, Hawkeye has been framed for killing Natasha, so why wouldn't she have gone through with shooting him there and then? It just kind of comes across as those convenient moments where, okay, if you're sent there as an assassin to assassinate him, why aren't you shooting him in that moment? It's like the gun is being held off, there was such a perfect couple of moments of opportunity there, but it doesn't happen. Either way, though, I was still thoroughly entertained by the other parts. That's when Kate comes in after, you know, having a little bit of a mess up before. She used a bit of like a flashbang arrow, which was super awesome. She gets the drop on Yelena, which, you know, she realizes in this moment she's bested, and she's like, well, I know you're not going to kill me, but I kind of probably do have to get out of here. That's when she gets out of there to kind of live to fight another day, I suppose. I just hope that the lines we maybe get between Clint and her gives us some broader context of, like, does she truly believe that he was responsible for it, etc., etc., because if not, then she wouldn't have gone through the mission in the first place to go after Clint from Val. And so, assuming that she did believe that, I don't get why she wouldn't have taken the opportunity to shoot him in the moments I've aforementioned. This all ended up with where you really delivered a tough love, because, as he says, this situation has become very real very quickly. A Black Widow assassin has been hired to go after them, and he doesn't want her hurt, so he delivers some very cold words of, you're not my partner, you never were. That very much so hurts her. You know, I did think initially, like, but at the end of the day, you're letting her come on some fairly dangerous missions with you, like last episode, this episode, breaking in to get that watch, but I understand at the same time, the fact that it's gone to Black Widow assassin level threat, he doesn't want to get her involved. But I do still feel like it is a bit regressive of how, like, she was literally involved in gunfire last episode and things like that. You know, if you take things like that into account, it's a bit But yeah, at the end of the day, I get to his perspective, this is so much more dangerous than tracksuit people, which I agree. So all in all, guys, I like this. You know, obviously, Kate isn't going anywhere. I still very much so enjoyed the episode, and I'm just looking forward to the big bombshells now, as we're, like, basically only a couple of episodes left. So let me know your thoughts on this episode, the theories that I mentioned, any other theories out there that I may not have even thought of or have even seen and failed to mention. Let me know your thoughts on my more critical thoughts, whether you agree or disagree. I would love to know regardless. Give this video a like. If you did enjoy it, do subscribe for more Marvel and DC and other kinds of content out there. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you people of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in that next video. Goodbye.